Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, today we are tackling a massive, massive myth that basically dictates how we all work. It's this ingrained idea that a continuous, uninterrupted grind equals maximum productivity. You know the drill, right? We celebrate the hustle, we brag about chaining ourselves to a desk for 8 hours straight. But the science tells a completely different and frankly fascinating story. It turns out the secret to actually getting more done isn't working longer. It's knowing exactly when and how to stop.
So let me ask you a question, and I want you to be totally honest here. Have you ever stared at your computer screen? Maybe it's right around, I don't know, 3 p.m., and suddenly you realize you've read the exact same sentence 5 times without processing a single word? Yeah, we've all been there. And usually what do? We beat ourselves up over it, right? We think we just need to push harder. But listen to this. That wall you hit, it's not a lack of willpower. It's a biological reality. Your brain is literally crying out for a reset.
Okay, let's dive into this. According to the American Psychological Association, almost 9 out of 10 workers, that's 89%, report feeling way more productive when they take regular breaks. I mean, 9 out of 10. Yet, so many of us still skip our lunch breaks or we feel this weird guilt just stepping away from our keyboards. And by doing that, we're basically ignoring a fundamental human requirement for peak performance.
Here's exactly what happens when you try to fight your own biology. When you feel that heavy fatigue setting in and you try to force yourself to just push through it, you aren't showing dedication. Actually, scratch that. You might think you are, but you're really triggering what scientists call the ultradian stress response. This essentially floods your body with cortisol, the stress hormone, and absolutely kills your cognitive performance. The result? Declining motivation, sloppy work, and an eventual unavoidable crash. You are literally working against your body's own chemistry. To understand why this happens, we really have to look at our internal clocks. Now, you've probably heard of circadian rhythms, right? Those dictate our 24-hour sleep-wake cycle. But as researcher Andrew Huberman points out, our days are actually governed by ultraradian rhythms. Think of these as biological cycles that happen multiple times a day, typically lasting about 90 to 120 minutes. During these 90-minute windows, our bodies are naturally hardwired for deep, intense focus. But after that window closes, our cognitive resources are completely tapped out, and we enter this natural trough where our brain absolutely demands recovery. Now, what's really interesting about this is when you map these biological rhythms onto a daily schedule, you see a super clear pattern emerge. A 90-minute deep work session aligns perfectly with your peak morning energy. But the absolute crucial part is what immediately follows that, a 20-minute restorative phase. By alternating these blocks of high-focus tasks with true, genuine 20-minute breaks, you're basically riding the wave of your natural energy rather than drowning in it. Notice the afternoon slump on there? That's exactly when you should schedule your low cognitive tasks, like answering emails, because your overall energy is just naturally lower then. Okay, so biology tells us exactly when to take a break, but psychology tells us how to break. Enter attention restoration theory, or ART, developed by Rachel and Stephen Kaplan. This is the psychological science behind exactly what we should be doing with our brains during those 20-minute restorative phases. Because, spoiler alert, and I know you're guilty of this too, checking your phone does not count as a break, not even close. See, the Kaplans discovered that our brains actually use two completely different types of focus. First, we have directed attention. This is what you use to write a complicated report or stare at a massive spreadsheet. It requires active effort. It relies on your brain's neural inhibitory system to block out a million distractions, and it drains your mental battery incredibly fast. Conversely, we have effortless attention. This happens naturally when you watch trees blowing in the wind or gaze at a fish tank. It engages the brain so gently without demanding any cognitive load. It's like plugging your tired neural system into a fast charger. Let's move to the next concept and see how this builds, because you're probably wondering, what does a restorative space actually look like? Well, for an environment to trigger that effortless attention and really restore our focus, it needs 4 essential elements. First, being away, you need to feel a physical or psychological escape from work. Second, soft fascination, something that gently captures your attention, kind of like nature. Third, extent, the environment has to feel immersive enough to really occupy your mind. And fourth, compatibility. It simply has to be a setting you actually like and feel comfortable in. So, taking all that signs into account, here is the ultimate evidence-based guide to taking a true break. Step 1, detach completely. Seriously, no talking about projects, no checking Slack. Step 2, change your physical environment. You literally cannot recover in the exact same chair where you just depleted all your energy. And step 3, engage in soft fascination. Go for a walk outside, look at some plants, just let your mind wander. Remember, doom scrolling social media requires directed attention and will only exhaust your brain even more. Now, I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. You're saying, well, this sounds great for office workers or creatives, but does this psychological theory actually hold up in rigorous, physical, metric-driven corporate environments? It is a totally fair question. Does stepping away actually maintain, or no way, maybe even improve hard output? To answer that, let's look at the hard data. The CDC conducted this absolutely fascinating study involving 30 workers at a highly demanding meat processing plant. They took these workers and just gave them an extra 36 minutes of break time every single day, right on top of their normal lunch and standard breaks. They tested distributing this extra time in frequent 3-minute chunks, and then they tried it in slightly longer 9-minute intervals. And this brilliantly illustrates our whole point. The researchers noted that neither of the 2 experimental rest break schedules had a negative effect on production, and the 9-minute break schedule improved discomfort ratings for the lower extremities. I want you to really think about that for a second. They took 36 minutes of productive labor time entirely away from the assembly line, and overall production did not drop a single bit. Plus, the physical well-being and comfort of the workers significantly improved. It's a total win-win. And hey, it's not just one isolated study. A massive +1 meta-analysis of over 2,300 participants proves that introducing short rest breaks leads to mathematical standard deviation increases in both the quality of work, up by 0.23, and the actual quantity of work, up by 0.12. So taking breaks doesn't just make you feel warm and fuzzy, it literally makes you faster, sharper, and more accurate. But, of course, here is the catch. To actually harvest these incredible biological and cognitive benefits, organizations really have to rethink their physical spaces. You can have the absolute best break schedule in the entire world, but if your employees are just eating a sad sandwich over their keyboards, they aren't recovering. A desk simply cannot double as a restorative space. There absolutely must be a complete physical separation between where the work happens and where the rest happens. This is exactly why forward-thinking companies are investing heavily right now in science-backed break room design. Based on everything we've talked about, a restorative room needs to maximize natural sunlight that regulates your mood and energy. It should use calming blue, green, and earth tones to lower visual stress. It absolutely must incorporate live indoor plants. Remember, that directly triggers that soft fascination our neural inhibitory system needs to recover. And finally, it should feature plush, comfortable furniture that signals to the body, hey, it's safe to relax now. But listen, the most beautiful, plant-filled, sun-drenched break room on Earth is completely useless without one invisible ingredient: psychological safety. The research shows a massive organizational hurdle still remains. Employees routinely skip breaks because they're terrified of looking lazy or uncommitted to their managers. And carrying around that guilt of stepping away, that leads directly to even faster burnout. So, the crucial point here is that building a healthy break culture requires active effort from the top down. Here are the actionable steps. First, leaders and supervisors must be seen publicly taking breaks themselves to really model the behavior. Second, implement scheduled group breaks like a 15-minute team walk at 2 p.m. to normalize stepping away together. And third, use modern HR platforms to actually incentivize and reward wellness pauses. We need to turn rest into a celebrated company value rather than some sort of secret indulgence. We've seen the biology, we've explored the psychology, and we've looked at the hard, undeniable data proving that strategic pauses actually increase our output while protecting our well-being. So I want to leave you with one final, very practical question as we wrap up this explainer. Look at the clock. Think about your energy levels right now. What are you going to do with your next 15 minutes? Are you going to try to push through the fatigue, or will you take a strategic pause? The choice and the science is yours. Thanks for hanging out with me on The Explainer, and I'll catch you next time.